You've heard the story of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the global phenomenon from 1993. But the story of these 5 Rangers actually starts almost 20 years prior in 1969. It was July 20th and Neil Armstrong had just stepped foot on the moon. People from all around the world were watching it happen in awe of this achievement for mankind. Ominously, we see another spaceship on the moon. As an AI system says,
"Proximity detected. Initiating wake-up protocol."
As the spaceship lights up, revealing a green Psycho Ranger. If you don't know, the Psycho Rangers are an evil team of Rangers that served under Astronomer in Power Rangers in Space. We then cut to a rooftop where a girl is sitting, staring up at the sky. Her name is Grace Sterling, an employee of NASA whose biggest dream is to become an astronaut and explore space. She chats with this guy called Marcus, who reassures her that one day she will get the opportunity to be the first woman to walk on the moon. Mid-conversation though, Grace vanishes in a flash of red light. Very confused, she starts looking around, finding herself to be at what we know as the command center, along with 4 strangers. Nikolai Chikarin, a Soviet agent, Jamie Gilmore, a British singer, Tarona Washington, a Vietnam War veteran, Daniel O'Halloran, a college student. Literally all 5 of them are panicking while Zordon tries to calm them down. Nikolai is screaming, but he's Russian and nobody can understand what he's saying. Alpha 5 then turns on the command center's internal translators, so despite the fact that he's speaking Russian, everybody else can understand him, and he can understand them. The 5 are still quite panicked, but Zordon tells them they must act swiftly as the fate of the planet depends on them. And now we get the backstory. 10,000 years ago, Rita Repulsa was locked away in a space dumpster by Zordon and his team. Knowing that one day someone would attempt to rescue Rita, he and Alpha set up a defense system on Earth to fire at the moon. 100 years ago, they had to use it. Re-enter Psycho Green, the right-hand man to Dark Spectre. En route to finding Rita, Zordon's defenses shot him down, halting his plan of finding and freeing Rita, but not quite killing him. Then it gets a little bit complicated. The ship that Psycho Green was flying in has a failsafe system. In the event of a catastrophic failure, it reroutes all of its power to a life support system, putting its user, its pilot, into a sort of hibernation state, and then only reactivates when it can sense human life by. That way it can wake the pilot up, send out a signal, and hopefully they can seek medical attention via the other people around. The fear, however, is that when the Apollo 11 team landed on the moon, that reactivated Psycho Green. Zordon then says since he and Alpha arrived on Earth, they've been searching the entire time for Earth's defenders. These 5 were chosen to become the Power Rangers. Jamie's still kicking and screaming, but Grace ends up taking the lead, asking them to confirm that they want them going into space. Because as mentioned before, this is Grace's dream. She turns to the others and says, look, regardless of these circumstances, when else are we ever going to get the chance to go to the moon? And I mean, kind of fair enough. They all agree, some more reluctantly than others, then hold out their hands as morphers spawn before them. Zordon then deems Grace the leader as both she and Alpha 5 yell out it's morphin time. Jamie is the Black Ranger, Nikolai is the Blue Ranger, Tarona is the Yellow Ranger, Daniel is the Pink Ranger, and Grace is the Red Ranger. Daniel is the first to speak up, absolutely livid that he's pink. Frequent viewers of this channel know that I'm all for a male Pink Ranger, so I have 0 complaints. And before anybody else can get a single word in, Alpha wishes them good luck and just teleports them to the moon. They get to the moon and they just can't believe it. And you and I wouldn't either. Imagine being teleported to a random place with a big floating head and a robot tells you you're about to go to the moon. And then, like that, you're on the moon. By the way, if you like this video and the other content that I make, you can support the channel over on Patreon. You don't have to, of course you know that. Liking, commenting and sharing does go a long way, but for just £3 a month, you get early access to these videos, you get some exclusive content, and you get your name credited at the end of the videos. Maybe consider it, links in the description, but your interaction does help me out too. Now, Grace has a moment to herself, taking in her surroundings, touching the ground, feeling the rocks crumble in her hands. Meanwhile, Nikolai and Jamie are beefing. Nikolai's basically saying how shit the moon is and he has no idea why Americans are working so hard together. And then Jamie just calls Moscow shit. They're also really going in with their British slang, overdoing it if anything. Lots of bloody hells and mate, and you know, even though it's just writing, I can only hear her in a northern accent. Come on, gotta put Zord on road. Bloody Psycho Green's balmy. Anyway, Grace tries to lead, but Nikolai is just being a dick. He says that just because Zordon made her the leader doesn't mean he's gonna take orders from a woman. Prick! Doing our Blue Rangers a massive disservice. Grace wants the team to hang back and coordinate an attack, whereas Nikolai wants to hunt down Psycho Green before Psycho Green gets an advantage on them, using his experience with the Soviet intelligence as his excuse. Eventually, he gives in to Grace's leadership and they devise a plan. Nikolai and Jamie are sent to search the right side of the crater where Psycho Green is meant to be. There's some small talk until Psycho Green emerges from the crater and lands behind them. We then cut back to the others where an argument breaks out between Daniel and Torona. Daniel believes the US shouldn't be a part of the war in Vietnam, and Torona believes he's just an obnoxious kid that knows nothing. Getting political in this comic book, you know. All of a sudden, they hear, "Help! We need help!" Followed by a huge dust explosion. Psycho Green literally throws Jamie, stating that they really should have said no to Zordon. Nikolai tries to be brave, stating that he won't stand by as Earth is attacked, and he's unable to finish his sentence before Psycho Green kicks him out into space. Grace is able to catch him, but as for Jamie, it's too late. Psycho Green lifts a huge boulder and crushes her. Out of pure rage, Daniel starts rushing towards Psycho Green, getting smacked directly in the face, shattering his visor and suffocating him in space. Kinda doesn't make sense. As we know in Power Rangers, the moon's gravity and oxygen is the same as Earth's. Psycho Green then strikes the remaining 3 Rangers down with his blast before making his way over to Rita's dumpster. Just as he's about to free Rita, the Rangers form the Power Blaster after acquiring the deceased Ranger's weapons. Again, kinda morbid, kinda sick. At first glance, the Rangers destroyed Psycho Green, but as we know, the Psychos have 2 lives, or at least 2 forms. The original look is just an armor. Now that that's broken, it's time for his true form to be unleashed. The Rangers make a run for it, heading into an unoccupied Bandora's palace in search of some extra help. They find a giant cannon, presumably a part of the X-Moon defenses. Nikolai figures out how to use it, but the 3 of them agree that they won't be able to get many shots out of it. And that's when Nikolai says he'll make it count. He turns to Grace and says, "We will save the Earth today, Grace. Make sure it's worth saving." And he charges towards Psycho Green, jumping up to his head height. Psycho Green opens his mouth and swallows Nikolai, but before he takes victory, Nikolai activates the cannon from the inside, destroying both Psycho Green and himself. Grace and Torona watch in horror before cutting back to the command center where Torona is screaming at Zordon, saying that none of them knew how to use these powers before going up to the moon, and how 3 of them are now dead. Zordon takes responsibility, saying he put all of them in a position where success was unlikely. He says sorry, but Grace bites back, saying that Jamie, Daniel and Nikolai will be remembered when they use these powers to help the world further. But then Zordon tells them because the threat is now gone, they're not allowed to keep their powers. They both leave, absolutely traumatized, till we see Grace still has hold of Psycho Green's dagger. The comic issue ends there, but Grace and Torona do go on to meet the Rangers of the future, or at least their future, 10 years ago for us. And they have more story to tell. If you want me to cover the full story of Grace and Torona, then let me know in the comments. This is a story that I would happily fund if somebody wanted to make it a fan film, or even if Hasbro wanted to do it in live action. Though, I doubt Hasbro would do something as cool as that.
Yeah, you know, I've written so many angry letters to Hasbro about that.
In just one comic issue, we were given 5 new characters, giving a backstory to all of them, and fully understood the type of people they were, and then still lost 3 of them. Having Grace be the Red Ranger and the leader was a great decision, especially because she'd go on to have more involvement with the Rangers 30 years later. But the team they put together with the other 4 was exceptional. Very different people, not just all good kids with slightly different hobbies, like different backstories, different ethics, different opinions on life. Daniel was a snarky 18-year-old that wasn't happy with the current state of the world. Jamie was a British musician that rebels against social normalities. Torona is an older war veteran that has a very damaged past, and Nikolai, whilst having some awful opinions, he wanted nothing more than to defend Earth. And just remember, this was inspired by 2 martial artists, a gymnast, a dancer, and a nerd. Psycho Green is also a Boom Studios original character, and does have some more stories across Boom Studios before his demise. In this comic alone, he's not that different to the other Psycho Rangers that we know, but I do like how he works directly for Dark Spectre in this, and how Dark Spectre was originally planning to free Rita. In the show, the Psycho Rangers were actually more of a creation of Astronomer, and their entire existence and fighting force was draining Dark Spectre of, you know, whatever power he had as a massive rock space monster. I love the commentary on Zordon's recklessness and how he's literally putting innocent lives at stake. Whilst these aren't 5 teenagers from Angel Grove, he still forces 5 people to borderline unalive themselves. Whilst I'd love for this to be canon to the TV show, it does only tie in with the Mighty Morphin comic series. Nevertheless, it is one of the coolest stories I think Power Rangers has ever told, and I'd love to see an expansion. If you want to see me unbox and review this very Cosmic Fury Morpher, then click the video in the end card. Huge thank you and shout out to Sarah Jane, our Super Dino Mode Patreon.